You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to Foley Is Pod. Welcome to the show. I am Conrad Thompson, and joining us, as always, of course, the hardcore legend himself, the Hall of Famer, on location in the Foley family home. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mick Foley. Mick, how are you, man?
Doing great, especially this is the first time I think we've officially had Mr. In Your House as our Foley Is Pod theme song, right?
I can't think of a better way to get the show started, really. I mean, goodness.
And, I think by popular demand is correct. Yeah, I was in the same location, my old house, 3 weeks ago, and we had a run-in by my mom. And if anyone hears something in the background, they're like, "What is that?" That's my mom watching Outlander episodes on Netflix. She just loves that, and I've watched every episode with her during the pandemic. So when I come over to visit, we just turn it on and we start on another season. So apologies for the less than perfect acoustics, but you got to do the best you can with the hand you're dealt sometimes.
You know what? I love it. It adds to the charm of the Foley family, and that's what we're doing here today. We're celebrating your great career, and man, one of the more interesting times in your storied career happened over in Japan. I think most people remember your time in Japan best for your death matches. Would that be fair to say?
100% accurate and completely fair.
So let's talk about how it all got started. Of course, we know it happened for the IWA, the King of the Death Matches. That's our topic today. It went down in 1995. Chat me up. I think the liaison was probably Victor Quinones, but how does that happen?
Man, I can't remember. I do remember they reached out to me one time when I left WCW, and I was not interested at that time. I had a good working relationship with ECW. I planned to do the independents, and I wanted to. I had this crazy idea at the time. It seemed crazy, but a lot of men and women have done it since then, of trying to make myself a more valuable entity without the nationwide TV. And I didn't know if getting involved in deathmatch wrestling would do that for me. And I think there's something to it, as evidenced by the fact that on my own, A&E biography, Mr. McMahon said that it was basically a strike against me. He thought it was kind of demeaning and not something they were interested at all in. So it was not until I heard that Terry Funk, and that's obviously we know Funk with an N, so I'm not dropping F-bombs upon thee. When he signed with IWA Japan, I reached out to Victor, and I said I wanted in because I thought going over there and having a chance to wrestle Terry Funk would be an opportunity, to work with my idol. And also I just sensed, and I've used this phraseology on my, on the Foley, the Nice Day Tour shows, that nobody was going to ask me for the ball back before I was done running with it. Right. Nobody pulled the carpet out from underneath me just when I thought I had something going. And I also thought that it would give me a chance to prove to the wrestling business, but just as importantly, maybe more importantly, to myself, that I was capable of drawing money in the wrestling business, putting butts in seats. And I thought going over there would give me the chance. Now, that being said, with my first tour, there was no guarantee I'd be asked back. And during my, 15, 16 months with IWA, I saw many a foreigner, or gaijin, as we say, come over for one tour, and that was it. So I was kind of embarking with a lot of hope and an idea of what I wanted to do.
Well, let's mention too, you had worked with Terry Funk before. I know in 94 you worked him in ECW, but it's probably a different thing to work Terry Funk in Philadelphia versus Japan, right?
Yeah, it is, because the ECW brand was so strong. Like, they were going to, at that point, ECW was selling out the arena / the bingo hall. And we were not doing well in other places, and that was going to be the case whether I was on the card or not. Like I thought it was a valuable addition to ECW, but they were going to be okay with or without me. And I thought that maybe this IWA Japan promotion would be my chance to make put my personal stamp on a young upstart promotion.
It's such an interesting concept, these death matches. You had been, as we've explained, in ECW in 94 and 95, and we've even talked about you working barbed wire matches. But boy, a death match in Japan, that's just a whole nother level. Are you comfortable with that? Or how did you get comfortable with that? Do you have a lot of questions? Or is it just, we'll figure it out, I guess?
This is where I have to quote Mr. Miyagi again. And by the way, for those people wondering, well, let's deal with his bottom teeth. It's a well-known fact that I lost those bad boys in the cell match. They were put back in and began to rot out. And I thought, all right, it reminds me of the famous wrestler line, like, I would do it, but would my character do it? And in this case, I was like, yeah, Mick Foley would have rotted out, gray and blue teeth, but Santa wouldn't. And so that's the reason why I made the decision I pulled one myself, the pliers, and I had the dentist take out the other one. But I thought it'd be a perfect time to just reinforce the fact that I am in fact hardcore. And I think that the smile is a good reinforcement of that.
Absolutely.
All right. So repeat the question, please.
Well, I just wanted to know about death matches. How do you get comfortable?
Oh, yeah. I said I was going to quote Mr. Miyagi, who said, you stand on one side of the road, you're fine. Stand on the other, you're fine. Stand in the middle, you get squashed like a grape. And what that means to me is you either do death matches or you don't, but there's no halfway. So if I was going to do it, I was going to commit to having the best death matches I could. And I was going to gear up for them psychologically, I guess. At that time, I'd have to go back to like my matches with Vader, where, every time I got in the ring with Vader, it felt like, for me, like my Thrilla in Manila. And for people who don't know, that's that incredible Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali fight from the Philippines in 75, I think. So, I approached these matches the same way, that whether there was 100 people, which was sometimes the case, or 2,500 people, which was really on the high end. That was like our big show at Corrigan Hall every tour, that I was going to, try to tear the house down. And I don't want to say reinvent deathmatch wrestling, but like create a surreal artistic spectacle out of something that some people refer to as garbage wrestling.
I'm just curious, this is not the normal type of wrestling. This is not what your trainer ever thought you would wind up doing. And now here you are.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, your coworkers, the other guys in the industry. Do they reach out, or do you ask and say, what the hell are you doing, Cactus? Or are you just dead set on, man, I got to do this. It's Terry Funk. It's a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
And then as you get there, are you sort of dictated to, or does the promotion allow you to say, what if we tried this? Can you be creative? Or
yeah. When I talk about having the football and no one asking for it back, it was really obvious within the first couple days, maybe even from the very first match that we kicked off the January 95 tour at Corrigan Hall, I believe, with a tag team match, me and Tracy Smothers against Terry and maybe Shoji Nakamaki. It might have been Ono, whose first name is escaping me, but it was definitely Terry. And I'm hard pressed to think for sure who that person was. But after that match, Mr. Asano, who was the owner of IWA, who was worth between $500 million and $1 billion, depending on what the Japanese real estate market was, he was really open to it. And he also had this chance. Here's this ultra rich guy, and he was basically creating some of these death matches. Like, he would just think of the most punishing stipulation possible. Barbed wire bricks. Barbed wire was a given in Japan. Take down the no rope barbed wire death match was like the staple of the death match diet. And as I reinforced on my tour, like when people say real barbed wire, my answer is, brother, this was Japan. They're not into any of the illusions. They really wanted that sense of realism, and with so many competing promotions, like you had to make your mark somehow. And it was also it was also a culture that accepted that warrior ethos. I know I'm kind of rambling here because I've had two coast to coast flights in the last 24 hours. So stop me if I'm rambling. Um, but that was one of my misgivings with ECW. For those of you who remember the hardcore promos I did, the anti-hardcore, hardcore promos, and the hardcore promos, is that I did think the ECW fans, especially in ECW, were a little too demanding and not as appreciative as they could have been. Overall, they were great. But, I go back to the examples I wrote about where JT Smith did a dive and didn't work out well. His head swelled up like a balloon and the crowd was chanting, you effed up. And I remember thinking, man, that's some cold stuff, even for Philadelphia. And the reaction was more respectful, less like being an animal in a zoo. And I really thrived on that atmosphere from the fans of Japan.
Let's talk about your first death match. You wrote about it in your book. It happened at Korakuen Hall. It's a famous wrestling venue over in Japan, but I think it's worth mentioning.
I'm trying to get the backlighting out of here. So if I'm jostling around with this thing, just forgive me. Okay, go ahead, Conrad.
We're at Korakuen Hall, a rather famous venue there for wrestling. But what's interesting, I think a lot of American fans may not know, it's a 2,200 seat auditorium on the 5th floor of a Japanese office building.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's great. You wouldn't expect that, especially seeing footage, understanding this is in an office building on the 5th floor. Here we are. It's not unusual, you write in your book, for 3 different promoters to use the hall on the very same day.
Yeah.
And when you get there, obviously, you know that selling merch is going to be a big part of your payoff. And boy, the Japanese fans are lining up to see you. And you even write in your book, hey, since we're going to do no rope barbed wire, meaning we're taking down where the ropes were, now it's going to be barbed wire. I know I'm going to take big bumps into it. I've got this big spot planned for a big clothesline. This is years before Mr. SOCKO. I'm going to put a big tube sock on my arm, and boy, that'll protect me. And you find out in your very first match, well, didn't really help all that much. You have 2 angry gashes in your arm, you describe in your book. And you even write, I don't have a medical degree, but I find it strange how some gashes never bleed and some small cuts seem to bleed forever. So even though you've got these gashes, it's not pouring blood, but are you a little panicked seeing what's happening here in your first one?
Just seeing the white meat that, yeah, sometimes you're lacerating. I'm like looking for the couple of the scars on my forearm. They're just like lay open where just, white, that's what I would describe it as, the white meat of the wound. And, I always kept a level head. Remember, it was only 6 months earlier, 5 months earlier, 10 months earlier, where I lost my ear in Munich. In case you forgot what that looked like, it's a good one. The not so good there, just to reinforce my hardcore, status. So yeah, I mean, by that time, Conrad, I don't want to sound all rugged and stuff, but I accepted from the onset that the physical style was going to lead to some issues physically, and that I was going to have to work through them. Now, issues would be like, like a stretched or a torn ligament, and minor breaks and contusions and bruises and all those things. And then you take it obviously a step further when you see that the gashes. But I would say the best example of someone performing under that type of but I don't know. Pressure is probably not the word. It is when Sabu and Terry Funk had a barbed wire match in ECW, and the Wire opened up Sabu in just a way that would have had many almost everyone rushing immediately for the exit, and almost nobody capable of finishing that match. And to me, it's one of those great unheralded moments of guts. Maybe psychosis as well. I'm talking about the mental condition, not the great Mexican luchador, where he literally sent Fonzie, Bill Alfonso, to the back, and came back with a roll of athletic tape and just wrapped it up around his tights till the match was over. And so that's kind of it's almost in your DNA. It's almost instilled in you when you have that type of respect for the business, that you're going to get across the finish line by any means necessary. And so I knew going in, that I wasn't going to wander out in the middle of the road. Mr. Miyagi had warned me against that. I was really committed to having the best matches I could. And that if an injury took place, by God, I was going to have to deal with it.
Well, so here it is. Your first one, you tear your arm down to the white meat. Meltzer would write that the crowd was announced at 1,370, but this promotion usually pads it, so it was probably under 1,000.
I
part of this that didn't.
That I would argue that. I don't doubt they've got great sources, but look, yeah, I'm not someone prone to hyperbole, and it looked nearly full to me.
Well, either way, you said at the start of this, it wasn't about crowd sizing. You were going to do this whether there was 100 folks there, and sometimes there were, or it was a stadium show. This was something you wanted to do. So it almost sounds as if, Mick, you're not doing this for the money. You're doing this for the experience.
I'm doing it to make a difference. And because at that point, just as we talked about Beyond the Mat a few years ago, where I said that was going to be my stamp on the business, I felt like, I was going to make a difference in this little world and be the best deathmatch wrestler I could. I mean, I was making $3,000 a week. And that's actually for 10 days because, there'd be 3 travel days basically. So you're not getting rich. I mean, it's almost guaranteed that you do say, you do 10-day tour every month. So that you're basically making $36,000 to come home in really rough shape. So no, you're not doing, even adjusted for inflation, that would be, $5,000 or $6,000 now, probably $6,000, say. And still, even then, you're talking about a $60,000 a year, salary to do some really dangerous things, like life-threatening things. So I did have the wife and 2 children, and I did have to pay a mortgage, but I could have done that by doing indies at that time. I was in that $500 a night range, $750 for the big Philadelphia shows at the ECW arena. So I could have made almost as much. And I was fairly in demand as an independent. So I was pulling down that, $1,000 a week plus some gimmicks. So, again, just to reiterate, it was to some degree about the money. Some extent, it's always a little bit about the money, but it was far more about leaving my own personal stamp. And like I said, having a chance to prove to the wrestling world and to myself that I was capable of making a difference and drawing money.
Well, I wish back then I could have delivered you some AG1, because just one delicious scoop and a cup of water every day, that's all you need to optimize your immune system, to get better gut health. Maybe you don't have the time, maybe you want a supplement that actually tastes great. Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right.
The reason I'm pawing through my bag here is I could have sworn I had one of those greens. I usually bring the packets when I'm on the road. I try to use it every day. I probably realistically use it 4 or 5 times a week, and I really like it. It's tough to get your greens in when you're traveling. And I do like that. So that's a fact. That's me testifying for something I actually do use.
Come on now, a little AG1 testimonial. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you're trying to eat keto or paleo or vegan or dairy free or gluten free. There's less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It's going to support.
It tastes really good. Yeah, it tastes really good. And for those of you who like a meal replacement shake or the protein shakes, you add it actually makes your drink taste better. I don't mix it up with a chocolate blend, but with vanilla, it's really good. It really is.
It's going to support better sleep quality and recovery, better mental clarity and alertness, and it costs you less than $3 a day. And think about how rare it is that any of us go out of our way to leave a review. I mean, it has to be really good or really bad for me to be motivated to do that.
Yeah.
Look, Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. And right now, Mick and I think it's time to reclaim your health. Arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Foley. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Foley to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So, Mick, let's jump back into it. You're not done with this tour. That's just step 1. Next match that everybody's raving about is January 8th. It's a barbed wire match that's going to be taped by the IWA. It's you versus Terry Funk. And one of the readers of the Observer writes, Dave, it's one of the best matches he's ever seen in his life. And one of the crazy highlights feature you taking a suplex face first on barbed wire, and then you light a chair on fire with kerosene and hit each other with it, to the point where Terry Funk receives 2nd-degree burns when the plastic melts from the chair and gets on his skin. Funk is then going to light the branding iron on fire, hit you in the stomach with it, and then your throat gets caught in the barbed wire. The wire will not hold your body weight. It collapses and rips the skin from your fingers. Is this just another day at the office in Japan, Mick?
No, this is pretty special. And one of the highlights, this match in particular, was one of the thing I looked forward to talking about the most when I did the Nice Day tour. If you remember when you saw it in Huntsville, it's the match I'm proudest of. It really is. And I've had a lot of time to think about that over the years. And I keep coming back to that match because of the lengths that both Terry and I were willing to go to kind of put this little promotion on the map. So there were 150 fans. I didn't count it, but that's what I estimated. But we knew that the Japanese media contingent was out there in force. And that was like our TV. That was like a TV taping for us. So maybe only 150 people would see this match live, but within 2 days' time, because of the nature of the business over there, up to 500,000 diehard fans would see what we did in brilliant full color. And so Terry and I believe, both looked at this as a way to put that little upstart promotion on the map. It was, it's just, I find so many of my favorite and biggest moments in wrestling were surrounded by like a surreal quality that would hold true for the Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker, which I believe we will do a 25th anniversary special on in June of 2023. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
But this one was, they're like, it was like you couldn't write this stuff because people reject it as not being believable. But we're in buildings that are hovering around 40 degrees Fahrenheit because we are technically working the southern part of Japan. And I Victor's not here to tell me why the buildings were needed, but I speculated that someone thought, hey, southern part of Japan, no need to heat the buildings. Let me tell you, I'm not a geographic expert, but it's pretty freaking cold in the suburbs of Tokyo
Yes.
in the beginning of January. And so you can actually see your breath. I'm in a situation where I usually say there were three gaijins, me, Tracy Smothers, and big kid from Winnipeg, Leather. Oh, man, how could I forget his real name? Great guy. Was on every single tour. He wrestled as Leatherface after the original Leatherface. Corporal Kirshner did a year in jail for punching someone in the face in Japan, which is a no-no. And so there were actually, I think, I think the Hangmen were a tag team. So I believe there were 5 of us huddled around a kerosene heater, and a couple of the luchadors were in that dressing room as well, just huddled around a kerosene heater trying to keep warm. I'm not in a position where I can even see Terry Funk, let alone talk to him, because he's on the other side of the building. Sometimes you shared dressing rooms on those Japanese tours. I mean, you were on the same bus, so it wasn't total kayfabe. Because bigger promotions have separate buses for Japanese wrestlers and the foreigners. But our case, we were working on a shoestring budget, so we all traveled in the same bus, got out, ate at the same truck stops. But in this occasion, we were in separate dressing rooms, did not have a chance to see each other or communicate. So not only did we call it on the fly, but I think we all both had to accept that I had to believe that despite the small crowd, that it was one of the most important matches of our lives.
It's amazing to think that this promotion goes from you working in front of a few hundred fans.
Yeah.
Then Tarzan Goto jumps ship from the rival FMW. He's going to join the IWA. So that means Goto, Funk, Cactus Jack, the Headhunters. This group is now going to go out, not in front of 300 fans, but book a 40,000 seat Kawasaki Stadium.
Yeah.
This sounds like the worst idea ever. I mean, even our old pal from the UWF, Mr. Abrams, wouldn't think of going from a few hundred fans to tens of thousands of fans.
I think he would. And I think he did plan on it by booking the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. Not only did he book it, he had to make someone believe that he was capable of putting people in that building. And he did, up to 200 of them by my hand count. I had a chance to see the audience up close. Yeah, when I did a lumberjack match with Snuka that ended up in a double count.
It's done crazy stuff in your career, have you not?
Lumberjack. What, Conrad?
There were more lumberjacks than people in the stands.
Not only that, I had to recruit my own lumberjacks. So I think we had 2 female wrestlers, a couple little people, and I had people just say no, they weren't going to do it. I was like, Herb needs lumberjacks. So we had a ragtag group, and then as Snook and I are waiting into the first level off the floor, Brian Blair is like, "What are you doing?" I yell, "It's a count out." And he said, you can't do a count out. He's actually saying this to me, like, as we're speaking. It wasn't like whispering. He's like, "Oh, Brian, you can't do a count out in a lumberjack match." And as I'm fighting with Snook, I yell, "It's a Herb show. We can do whatever we want." So I had been in front of some awfully large arenas with a very limited number of people. And this was a case where, it was a small gymnasium, maybe it would have been packed out at a couple thousand people, but those 150 people in their winter coats they were either diehard wrestling fans or they didn't want the local Yakuza to know that they were not attending a match they'd been forced to buy tickets to, because I believe there was some persuasion among the local business owners where whether or not they showed up was up to them, but doggone it, they were buying those tickets. Yeah. I wasn't aware of the extent to which the Yakuza was involved in the wrestling trade. But I believe they were.
Psst, did you hear? Pro Wrestling Tees has brought back the original Mr. SOCKO, autographed by Mick Foley, but they're doing it for 1 week only. And that sale ends this coming Monday. It started this past Monday on the 7th. It'll end this coming Monday. You don't want to miss out. It's only $39.99. Now, there's no coupons available or allowed for this one, but you'll get it in time for Christmas. You want to talk about the ultimate stocking stuffer? That's right, an autographed original Mr. SOCKO signed by Mick Foley. You can't beat that. Only $39.99, just in time for Christmas. What a cool stocking stuffer. What a cool gift for your wrestling friend or yourself. Hey, I want one. I don't have an autographed Mr. SOCKO, but I know where to get one. ProWrestlingTees.com. But hurry, the sale is only good for a week. So once they're gone, they're gone. Hurry right now to ProWrestlingTees.com. And don't forget, it will arrive in time for Christmas. ProWrestlingTees.com. Grab your original Mr. SOCKO right now. Yeah. So it's amazing that happens in January, and clearly the tapes of you and Funk go so viral before that was really a word over there that they're able to book a baseball stadium. And you go back August 18th, 1995, and you would write, we'd been on the road for 8 days and had traveled via the Japanese bullet train into the wee hours of the morning. We were awakened after about 5 hours sleep and took the 2-hour bus trip from a section of Tokyo into Yokohama. I stepped off the bus in front of the dilapidated baseball stadium and knew right away that I was in trouble. It was only 10 in the morning, but the temperature was already over 90. The humidity was almost unbearable. So take us back. You're a man in a foreign land. You're a little weary from all the travel. And this is polar opposite. Last time you were here, you're freezing your ass off.
Yep.
And now you're inside, and now you're outside, and it's sweltering at 10 a.m. What's going through your mind as you walk through this dilapidated baseball stadium?
Yeah, it had to be dilapidated because, they couldn't get clearance to use the explosive ordinances. I think that's the right terminology. You had to use a stadium that was going to allow you to do those things.
Right.
And FMW had a history of drawing big crowds for these wild stipulation matches. I gotta tell you, I was, I was in this case a wee bit trepidatious, because, now look, I want to be completely honest, with our audience, and I think they appreciate that, but I do ask people to read between the lines. There are certain, you will not hear me talk about a blade on, although I just did talk about it. I think I called it a small, sharp implement of destruction, in my book, and then you allow people to surmise what they will about that. So let's just say I had reason to believe I'd be in the final match, which would involve the explosives. And when they took us out to the outfield before the fans came in, maybe around noon, they detonated the barbed wire boards. It's thought, it's supposed to look like you land on the boards and that causes the detonation. But actually, there's somebody up in the loge area, the munitions people. FMW used special effects people from the motion picture world. We used munitions people. So their stuff looked amazing, and clearly there's some fallout. But in this case, it looked as painful, absolutely as painful. It felt as painful as it looked. But when they detonated those explosives, it sounded like a howitzer going off, boom, and you could hear it echoing. And I just looked, and I think my voice rose about 3 octaves. I'm out there with Victor Quinones and Mr. Asano. I don't know who else was out there. And I said, there's no way. There's no way. And then Terry Funk says, oh, yeah, that looks good. But I think you ought to have another explosive right in the middle. Prior to that, there was one on each end. And I said, right, Terry, if we have explosives on each end and in the middle, where are we going to land? And he goes, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I thought to myself, I don't think it's going to be fine. And the physical fallout as a result of that was evidence that my intuition was correct.
You wrote in your book that Terry smiled and said, no, Cactus, it'll be fine. Trust me, I did. And later wished I hadn't. This is that's what we're talking about. We're in the middle of a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
In the infield, there's 3 wrestling rings. As you look around, it is a dilapidated, old, abandoned-looking baseball
Right.
stadium. It's very hot, and the promoter is going to show you a C4 demonstration on top of barbed wire boards.
Yes.
And I think back to your training and Mr. Danucci.
My boy, we're going to land in a barbed wire board. He made it clear, he knew I liked the wild stuff, and he spoke in parables, and he made it clear that if I wanted to create wild paragraphs on my own, that was up to him. But doggone it, we were going to learn the alphabet first, and we did. And then he was, he understood that I liked that, the crazy stuff, but as long as I had the mechanics down, the basics, so I could work with anybody. He was okay with that, but it is something you get to, you get a feel for as you go, and you make mistakes. And the great thing about the mistakes, Conrad, is if you make them, by God, they're right there on video. So, if you're going to make mistakes in wrestling or life, have a camera on.
Let me ask this. You have taken issue over the years when guys like Ric Flair, and of course you guys are on great terms these days, but once upon a time he called you a glorified stuntman.
Yeah.
And I thought that was unfair. But now, in cases like this, you are kind of doing stunts, are you not? I mean, this match, this tournament,
part of it. Keep in mind, when you're out there, you're not just a stuntman, you are your own coordinator. You are sound effects man. You are your own publicity machine because you're cutting your promos. And never more had I felt like, the success of a promotion hinged on my contribution. So, hey, on behalf of all the unheralded stuntmen out there, and I've got this on good authority because I have guys tell me, thank you, thank you for representing us. That's certainly something I did. I did receive far more glory than the men and women who don't. I think now, is there a category in the Academy Awards for best stunt work? I know it's been discussed. I don't know if it's out there, but it is, that's, part of what I brought to the table. But I tried my best to make my bumps look like a realistic part of a match. I think I've talked in the past about how I admired people who did what I call fantastic bumps.
Yes.
But not as based in reality. Just for example, the stairs bump, which I did not invent, but I think I popularized.
Yes.
If somebody's going to take the stairs, I believe they take the stairs in a similar way to they take the turnbuckle. And I have never seen a human being, and I could be wrong, there could be video evidence, I've never seen a human being take a turnbuckle by going down to their knees and hitting their shoulder on the second turnbuckle.
Right.
Yet that's the way almost everyone takes the stairs. And I thought, okay, I did tinker a few times with hitting it, backwards like you would the turnbuckle, and having my own momentum carry me over the stairs. But basically, what you got were 100% legit. That's me running as hard as I can at those stairs, hitting them as hard as I can with the upper thigh, and having a realistic result of that collision, which is, my body, my momentum is stopped immediately and I go sailing over it. And that's consistent, I think, with what a real life collision of that nature would be. So I did try to make them realistic. But I also understood that when you have stipulations, which I would call the toys, the procession of the toys, where you just try to make, during the course of the match, you try to up the ante as to what you are dealing with. And so instead of bringing out a barbed wire bat or a table or a chair or what have you from a seemingly endless supply underneath the ring, I would use what those stipulations afforded me. So whether that was the barbed wire, The Thumbtacks, I would try to make them as realistic as possible. And I would just try to make it super easy for those fans to suspend disbelief. And I think I was pretty successful with that.
Very successful at that. And I do want to ask about, you're wearing a lot of hats here. You're not just doing these crazy matches. Before the show starts, you're working the gimmick tables, brother. Rock and Roll Express. Tell me about what this is like, because it is crazy to imagine, just hours before you're going to take all these crazy moves and risks and circumstances that are just beyond description. You're behind a folding table selling Cactus Jack t-shirts, sweating your ass off.
Oh yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, like I understand my first match is going to be I know it's going to be with Terry Gordy. And right. Terry went, from being one of the top, I would say, I think I said this in a previous show, top 10 workers in the entire business, especially as far as working a super strong style was concerned. And then he had an overdose of pills when he was working for All Japan on a plane. I believe his heart technically, I don't want to venture out into, an exaggeration, but I believe he was technically dead for a short time. And when he came back, he was never quite the same. Got himself into, really amazing physical condition. And he had cardio. He could go for days, but he was never the same mentally. And so I know I've got the barbed wire board. We do have barbed wire boards in all three matches that day had barbed wire boards in them. But the first one was accompanied by the 10,000 thumbtacks in a shallow box. And the second one with Nakamaki was also the bed of nails. And then as we go to the final with Terry, it's, not only the barbed wire boards, but they're laced with explosives, and the ring is set to implode at the 10-minute mark. So I know I've got a lot ahead of me, especially, as I said, for those of you who want to read between the lines, that I had reason to believe I was going to be in there for that final match, but doggone it. Like I said, I've got a mortgage to pay, and this is the biggest show we've ever had. And I can't just bring home. Technically, I paid $425 for that day of work. Never saw a nickel of any royalties. Until the Juggalos, they threw a little extra cash my way because they had done the Stranglemania thing. But so you had to supplement that income, and I'm out there selling shirts to the point where I actually hear my music playing, and Asano comes out, Cactus son, go, and I'm like, hold on, just one more thing. And I liken it in my book to saying, imagine this was boxing. And they're like, Mike Tyson, we're expecting Mike. He's just taking a couple last Polaroids at the gimmick table. He'll be here any minute. And this might be, where I remember what I want to remember. But in my mind, at least, I had some yen paper currency sticking out of my cowboy boots when I did that first match with Terry Gordy. It's like, I'll be right there. And I hit the ring fresh from the gimmick table. So that was just a reality. You want to, like I said, you're making $30K for an entire year's worth of carnage. You have to supplement it somehow.
It's just amazing to me to think about. And I do want to talk about the Terry Gordy circumstance, because Terry Gordy's still a name here, despite maybe not being the wrestler he was. He still has a reputation. So yeah. I understand why he's booked. But apparently you guys did a press conference earlier in the week to try to hype this thing up. And during the course of this, he recalled that you guys wrestled for Global back in 91.
Yeah.
And he says in a loud and clear voice, Jack, I dropped you on your head once and I can do it again.
Yeah.
And now you have a chance to respond, and you say something like, that was different, Gordy. Tell me what you're going to do when you step into that ring at Kawasaki Stadium and see those 10,000 thumbtacks. I'm going to turn your ass into the world's largest pincushion.
Yeah.
And you write in your book, Terry's eyes seemed to grow as wide as saucers. And after the press conference, he approached me, bro, I didn't know anything about no thumbtacks. How does this happen?
I guess he didn't get the memo, bro.
It's
He had
amazing.
that deep, mournful voice, bro. Nobody told me anything about any thumbtacks. And I think I said, it'll be okay. It will be okay. And so, yeah, I'm in this unique position where I now am leading the match with one of the great workers, that's ever, been to Japan. And I have to do him justice as well as myself. And by no means is it a classic match. It was less than 10 minutes, but it was pretty constant. And the idea of the 10th, we'd had the thumbtack matches before. I was in the original. I'm like, in some ways, I'm like to the thumbtacks what the guy from the UK who released Starlings into the United States is. Like, I brought it over to North America with me because I was in the first ever push pin misery death match. It wasn't called a thumbtack match, push pin misery death match, where I guess oddly or maybe ironically, I was the one guy in that tag match who did not take a bump in the tags. I still, suffered from my art, but I laid out that match and it didn't result in me taking the bump. But I would go on to take many more over there during my time in Japan. And this was, we're all used to, the thumbtacks coming out and in a canvas bag. But this was a case where all 10,000, I mean, it looked like 10,000. It was advertised as 10,000. I didn't actually count them. It's a little more difficult to count the tacks than it is the people at a herb show at the MGM. But I just knew I had to end up in that box in a creative manner. I just want to go back to the match in Global, which was a turning point of sorts for me because I was trying to work a more serious style than I had in WCW. I was trying to reinvent myself as a main event guy, as opposed to a mid-card kind of pseudo, or, honestly, I wasn't even mid-card. I was lower mid-card, top of the bottom type of guy in WCW during my first run. And I wanted to, I was really influenced by the matches I watched up to 12 hours a day. No exaggeration. You should have my wife on sometime. She'll vouch that we had a little 13-inch TV, the cassette, the VCR / TV, 13 TV. And I would watch up to 12 hours of Japanese wrestling a day. I mean, that's on the extreme end, but at least a couple hours every day. And I liked, the Brody, Henson, Gordy stuff, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. Of course, I idolized Terry. Terry was my absolute favorite because I don't have scientific proof of this, but Terry was not afraid to wear his heart on his sleeve.
Right.
Like to this day, I know to each their own, but the strong style where guys trade chops or slaps to the face and act like something that does hurt doesn't hurt, which seems counterproductive to what we should be doing as professional wrestlers. Like Japan's a real stoic culture, but Terry managed to break through and become, he was an iconic part of Japanese culture. You maybe use that iconic word too often, but Terry was part of people's childhoods because All Japan and New Japan were incredibly popular there in the 70s and 80s. And Terry was the top gaijin babyface foreigner. That's not if you refer to yourself as that, it's not a smear. That's what we referred to ourselves as. And I think he was that top guy partially because he wasn't afraid to let his emotions show. He would cry during interviews. He would sell in a way where he would actually look to the crowd and plead for help. Dusty did the same thing. And in that stoic culture where everyone was trying to be more manly, he became the top guy partially because he tapped into, those emotions that weren't usually associated with tough guys in Japan. And I've speculated that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to the women's wrestling, because they are more in keeping with that wearing your heart on your sleeve. They just don't don't just do the look of disbelief after a false finish. Like, we have women actively crying tears the way that Terry did. And that appeals to me. I like that aspect of wrestling. And to me, nobody did it better than Terry Funk.
It's so fascinating to hear about this match with Terry Gordy, because I know you and all hardcore wrestling fans hold him in such high regard, but you wrote in the book that you're concerned about the weakness of Terry's punches at this point. So you approach him before the match and say, Terry, I want this match to look good. And I think maybe to play it safe, you should just hit me your hardest out there.
Yeah.
He wants to confirm. And he says, are you sure, bro? And you replied, yeah, Terry, I am. And he would continue. Terry looked at me sadly, and I could tell the words that followed were difficult for him to say. Bro, just help me out there.
Yeah.
Now, this is some real pressure. You're trying to put on one of your most important performances of your career, and you're with a guy you really respect. But now you've got the task of not only do you need to look good, but he needs to look good. And he's concerned that he might not look like the
Gordy of old. Yeah. So, I mean, I want to have a good match. I have reason to speculate that not only will I be in that final match, but that I might win it. Read between the lines. I'm just not comfortable.
Right.
But just read between the lines. I believe there's an opportunity that possibly I might win, but I also want Terry to come away from that match with the fans thinking they saw the Gordy of old. And the odd that, whoa, that was some bright stuff there. Oddly, Gordy's punches were the ones that I would say were like the classic wrestling punch. And forgive me if I've used this, I say like in, MMA, boxing, the best punches come with about this much distance. There's some boom, whereas in wrestling, we don't throw it from here to here. We throw it from here. And Terry would like bring it way back, almost like he was drawing a bow, use that left hand too. And then bam, he would deliver that. Just incredible. I don't know why the adjective popping up is delicious, but he's doing a delicious punch. And after the accident, the punches really suffered in a way. It almost seemed like he was a guy trying to figure out pro wrestling instead of being a master at it. And I wanted my match to look realistic. I wanted to be good. I thought, the flaw in Gordy's punching game might make that a challenge. And so I just wanted to make sure it looked good by telling him to lay it in, brother.
Well, he does. And boy, these punches are not quote unquote working punches. He busts you open the hard way right above your eyebrow. And that photo,
it was like in the first minute, if if memory serves me correct. And I was really sad. Look, man, I'm not your typical, alpha male wrestler. I scrapbook, right? I'm like the sensitive hardcore guy, but I wanted that stuff to look good. And so when I felt that warmth coming down my face, I knew the feeling. I'd been there before. I was really happy about it because I knew that had been a good decision. Not talking long-term health-wise, because, some of the stuff I did, long-term is not good for you. And I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but for the sake of that match at that time, I felt like I had made a sound decision.
I can't imagine how stiff a punch from Terry Gordy here when he's got something to prove in front of 30,000 people must be.
It was stiff, but not as stiff as a Terry Funk working punch. So,
love you for that.
I'd worked with Vader. So I knew what the upper echelon of stiff felt like. And then I would later go on to work with Stone Cold and Brett. Sean delivered the goods too, especially when it came to the televised matches. Nobody was smoother, but brother, he delivered those punches. Brett proudly referred to his punches as the rubber mallets. And I think Steve was always just a tiny bit hurt that I didn't feel like he was the snuggest. And I have to be like, I'm sorry, Steve. you are, and then the Santa memoir I wrote, which I knew going in, no one was going to read. I said, like, there's no correct way to get to the finish line. You make it look as good as you can. So if you're The Rock and you throw amazing punches and they don't hurt much, and you're Steve and you throw amazing punches that do hurt considerably more, no one's right or wrong. And I said, look, Steve Austin was a lot of things, but an illusionist was not one of them. Like he was a physical, he worked that really rugged physical style. And I was always comfortable with that as long as nobody took liberties with your nose, your teeth, your jaw. I was laying that stuff in, and it looked great. And so, yeah, those punches from Gordy were no day at the beach. But that was just a price that or I guess in this case, I was willing to pay.
Well, if you find yourself looking for something stiff and you need to say, bro, just help me out there, can I recommend Bluechew? This episode is brought to you by Bluechew, and we're going to get it done the hard way around these parts, okay? Bluechew is the unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And I'm actually talking about this in front of Mrs. Foley's mom right now.
Yeah, she's there, and I don't know if she's comfortable with her baby boy talking about boner pills, but that is life.
Well, that is life. And here's the thing, your mom should know that you can take these anytime, day or night, Mick. You can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. We might even call it a run-in. The process is simple. You sign up at bluechew.com. You consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And here's the best part. It's all done online. No visits to the awkward doctor's office. No awkward conversations with mom in the other room.
Like the kind we're having right now.
No waiting line at the pharmacy. And we're going to get back to Outlander right away. Bluechew's tablets are made in the USA. They prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. But now Mrs. Foley's baby boy has been outed. He knows about Bluechew, and if you can benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, and Lord knows Mr. Gordy could, chew it and do it. Have better sex, y'all. And we've got a special. Go ahead,
Conrad. Then
we got a special deal for our listeners. Try Bluechew for free when you use our promo code Foley at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. The promo code is Foley. You'll receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. We thank Bluechew for sponsoring this podcast, and we'll make sure next time Mick has headphones when he was at mom's house.
I will have proper lighting. I'll probably be wearing my bottom teeth.
Check it out, boys and girls. Bluechew.com. The promo code is Foley.
My poor condom. Yeah. I said in the book that in my wallet, I had 3 things of note in my wallet. I had the condom that crumbled over time. I had the photo of Jack Lord from Hawaii 5-0, and I also had the lyrics to a Kinks song called "The Way Love Used to Be." So
I love it.
Yeah. So the condom went many years without being used, and when I attempted to utilize it after 3 years in my wallet, it crumbled. Didn't know prophylactics did that, and okay, yeah. So that's enough boner talk.
Yeah, we're back in the Hardway match here with you and Terry Gordy. He opens you up with those punches. Now it's time to get going with the thumbtacks. First, you just try it on for size with your boot. You know for sure they're in your boot now. And here they come. He's going to smash your face into it. He's going to power bomb you into it. You're going to throw the thumbtacks at him. You're going to give him the DDT. You get the pin. And somehow he escapes thumbtack free. So you made his punches look good because they were real.
Yeah.
And he's thumbtack free. Boy, you're just batting 1,000 in this match, are you not?
And also, you've heard me, I think on 2 different tours, I've talked about the Foley risk reward ratio analysis. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had a gift that would size up opportunities in or outside the ring, around the ring, and tell me whether or not the reward was worth the risk. And again, I'm not help me with the word. I'm not approving of people using this. There's a better word. It will come.
Right.
Number 1 best-selling author did it twice. but I am tired from the coast to coast flights because I may or may not be working a job that requires constant travel. We'll know more in the early months of 2023. But the Thumbtacks always seem to me to be on the high end of the reward versus risk. You just got to close that one eye as tight as you possibly can. So in this case, I had thought, instead of just going into it, we're going to try something different. By this point, I'm a seasoned veteran when it comes to the push pin misery death matches. And so I take a bump and my face kind of lies in that shallow box. And then Gordy puts a good solid boot to the opposite side of my face. And I'm getting goosebumps. I should not be getting goosebumps about something like this, but the payoff was so big because I'm working 30,000 people in a 40,000 seat stadium. It's the biggest show I've ever done. I take that boot to the opposing side. I've never seen anyone do this. And as a result, I have about 5 or 6 really pronounced tacks in that shallow box side of my face. And I do the slow lap around the ring, selling so that every person can get a visual. And there is a wave of reaction. Again, getting the tingles out. It shouldn't be. 57, I'm a civilized human being with 4 children, read children's books, but doggone it, Conrad, there was something really rewarding about having an image and seeing it play off and paying a relatively small price for the privilege of having 30,000 people react in that manner.
The next match is just unbelievable, dude. The bed of nails. I don't even know how we do this, but at some point, I guess you sat down and watched this match with Paul Bearer, and even he was wincing when he sees on the tape where barbed wire sticking to your shoulder as you're trying to get up.
Yeah.
Nakamaki's big move is a series of headbutts.
You're right.
When it's time to introduce the bed of nails, you write, I slid it into the ring and propped it up in the corner, and as the crowd began to buzz, I grabbed the bleeding danger man, and standing above him, I attempted to grind his head into the nails. Bleeding's part of his gimmick. Don't feel bad for him.
He likes it
that night, even if I'd never touched him. I love that response, but tell me, how do you work with nails? What in the world?
Well, here's the deal. 1,000 nails, good. 1 6-inch nail can kill you or cause great damage. So it's not an illusion. It's just that the more nails you can land on, the safer you are. I mean, there's a high degree of danger because there's no guarantee. Like the headhunters were a legit 450, and they would come off the top rope with a moonsault onto someone who was on a bed of nails or sandwiched between a bed of nails and barbed wire boards. So there was definitely some danger. And, but the key was to land on as many nails. And again, using the Miyagi theory, like you either use the nails, the bed of nails, or you don't, but don't go halfway. Don't introduce the bed and then do nothing with it. Attack it. Show that bed of nails who's boss. Now, if they're, like I said, if I was working in a match where there was one large spike in the middle of that thing, I would have avoided it like the plague. But, again, high end of the risk reward ratio, not condoning it. Condoning is the word I was looking for earlier. Not condoning it. But doggone it, there was a lot of bang for the buck there. And as we will probably talk about, there was a big, I'll even say paradigm shift for me. I know I'm borrowing that from the Shield, but a big shift for me because at a certain point in the match, Nakamaki's out on the floor, and with his 100% approval, because he liked this stuff and he was all for it when I told him, we had a very limited ability to communicate. Basically we had the same conversation every time I saw him. He would say, "You danger man." And I said, "No, you danger man."
My God.
But in this case, instead of just dropping an elbow on him, which is a good move from the apron to the floor,
Sure.
I put the bed over his body. And I climb up to the ring apron and I think to myself, and I'm always somebody who completely respected my opponent's body. Always, or not always, this is one glaring omission. I get up on that ring apron and I see a fellow human being underneath that bed of nails. And I think to myself, I could make sure that as little damage as possible occurs to him. And then it's almost like the devil popping up on my other shoulder going, or you can make this shit look good. And I don't drop any of these bad words unless it's necessary. But that's exactly what was going through my mind. And I made the decision that I would make that stuff look good. And I did. And there was this part of me that when I dropped it, and I don't think he's a good enough seller or actor to act as horribly pained as he was. And when I heard the sounds of humor and suffering, I liked it.
Oh gosh, I love it.
I liked it. Yeah. I'll let you guys digest that, all of you listening in. Just to repeat, I liked it.
You wrote in your book about this nails circumstance. The nails pierced my skin. The pain shot through my body. But honestly, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
I was rocking and reeling, but I stopped him and threw him to the infield grass. We were right by the second bed of nails, and when I picked him up, they stood in unison to see the impact of flesh on pointed steel. Instead, I slammed him somewhat harmlessly on the stadium infield, and I could hear the disappointment from the fans. But I had a definite plan, and it didn't include something as mundane as a simple slam on the nails. And Meltzer would write that the fans here, they're more American-like in their behavior. They're catcalling wrestlers. They're not really paying attention to the matches that they don't know. It's a beer drinking crowd, as opposed to what you would see maybe with All Japan or New Japan. Were you expecting that, or did you kind of think it would be like some of the tapes you had been watching?
You know what? I knew it was. I knew from past tours it wasn't going to be exactly like that with the respectful golf clap. But again, I knew what it was like to feel like I was. I just use that animal in a cage reference because there were times, when I'd be like an indie show and someone would yell up and say, "I paid a ticket to see you bleed," and it's kind of a regrettable feeling. Whereas I did not have that feeling ever in Japan, even on that show. And I think there was one write-up, not Dave's, I guess, but a write-up where it said like the fans actually left with a sense of peace and calm, even though they're seeing these barbaric acts. We're like in an atmosphere where we know that everyone is totally on board with what they're doing, wants to be there, realizes that it's the biggest show of the year. And so I'm going to disagree with that sentiment. I thought it was a respectful, enthusiastic crowd.
You would write that, your next plan here, and you can go watch the tape, rather than just do a simple slam, you're going to come off with that big elbow onto him on a bed of nails. And you would say in your book, his pain would go away, but this tape would be forever.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the nails dig into him pretty deep in a couple of spots. He's in pretty considerable pain, but he tells you he's okay. Mm-hmm. And you would write in your book that he was kind of notorious for being a sandbagger, meaning he was almost impossible to lift off the ground. So you give him a sloppy looking low suplex in the ring, finish him with a DDT on the bar.
Here's the thing. Sandbagging is usually meant to imply it's intentional.
Yes.
It wasn't. It was not intentional. And I liked working with Nakamaki. I know Dave thought he was a dreadful worker, but I had a different perspective in that he sacrificed, he made people feel, he sold well, he was willing to try anything, he trusted me with whatever I wanted to do. And we had those great 5-word conversations. You danger man. No, you danger man. And but with all that positive stuff being said, he was also a heck of a writer. He came from a journalism background in Japan. With that being said, he went up as heavy for moves as anyone I've ever. Vader went up much. When I say lighter, I mean much lighter at 425 or whatever than Nakamaki did it. 250. So the finish was supposed to be the suplex from the second rope. I wasn't never a top rope guy. Second rope onto the bed of nails, and I couldn't lift him. I could not get him up, so the DDT on the barbed wire board was a secondary and very weak finish for a match of that magnitude. It's almost like hitting someone a howitzer and a grenade followed up by a BB gun for the finish. But it was what it was, and I felt fortunate to still be in one piece as I headed into the final match of the evening.
Before you get there, you're going to interfere and cost Tiger Jeet Singh his match against Terry Funk. So now our finalists are set. It's two Americans. It's Terry Funk versus Mick Foley. And this is why you're here, man. You wanted to be in this match with Terry Funk, and we're actually going to watch it. So let's fire up that footage and let's watch the finals of the IWA King of the Death match. I can't believe this is a real thing. Here we go.
All right, let's do it. Let me try to find my glasses.
You know the audio, Steve. So there you go. There's the C4. We see the barbed wire boards. What a visual, man. What a crowd.
It was great. And I had watched what would be considered, I guess, the co-main event at the time. Dan Severn going into professional wrestling was a huge deal because he was so big from UFC. And why he decided on IWA instead of, New Japan or All Japan is beyond me. But he and Goto had a really good, physical bloody match. And I remember watching it from the dugout with Chigusa Nagoya, who I've only met a few times over the years, but who's a company I really liked and consider to be on my probably my Mount Rushmore of women's wrestling. So that was memorable. And then I had to gear up for my own match. Terry came in, like, we didn't talk about anything that I recollect. I don't want to say like I called everything in the ring as a matter of, as a matter of fact all the time. But in this case, the only thing I remember was Terry coming in saying, Cactus, I wouldn't do this for many people, talking about putting me over. And I understood the magnitude of winning a match. And unless I'm mistaken, I believe in Japan, I'm still known as Cactus Jacko, King of the Death Match. Like I kind of want to go to a convention or maybe, attend a show in Japan. I haven't been there since 2004. And I'd like to go back because I think, in spite of all the things I did with WWE, this is the match I'm best known for.
It's amazing to hear that and know, what a big part of your career was, but what the financial end was. And we'll talk about that later. But I just want to ask, as you go into this match, you've seen the C4 beforehand. Terry Funk had the argument. Of course, this is exploding barbed wire. So we're doing a little psychology about, nope, I'm too smart for that. I'm not going into
his head. Yep. And that was, Terry had a way, like, this was the one argument, and that I didn't actually have an argument. I may have tried gentle persuasion to tell Nakamaki and Ono that if we have barbed wire everywhere, my God, don't take a post and go down and, whether or not a sharp implement of destruction was used, which it was like when Funk did it, to this day, I can't ever come up with a point where I can say I saw it happen and I've never seen it happen on the video. Whereas it was almost considered the manly thing to do in, Japanese culture, to let everybody know that you were getting the color. And so here we would be surrounded by, like I said, all these great implements, these great explosives. Not, on any given day, there'd be some type of barbed wire match at the IWA Japan show. And yet he would take like a turnbuckle and go down for what seemed to be minutes, like he was drawing on his head with a crayon and come up with the blood and the, ooh.
My gosh.
This is one case where, I love the idea, and I'm, prepped. The Hardways, I know we're not calling the action here, but you get so much mileage out of this stuff because Terry sold it so well. And he'll come up bleeding and we have no idea, I can't see where he did it. But trying to make the matches make sense so that they were that surreal, albeit violent expression of art, as opposed to just, a cluster F. But sometimes, if you were, you go in understanding it's not going to be a work of art. We're at a spot show. We're going to work hard. I'm going to accept that Nakamaki is going to take 3.5 minutes to get the color. And he's not going to go easy on slams. So we're going to do the best that we can with both guys trying. And in this case, I love the fact that this is one of the most, at that point, one of the biggest matches ever on videotape. But take it from me, from a guy who watched up to 12 hours of great Japanese wrestling. The match itself, I was just trying to survive it. Whoa, there we go.
Man.
And that's the legit deal, and
big explosion, and you still see the fire going.
Yeah. You can see it's sticking into Terry's back.
What's going through your mind in that moment right there?
Man, that is every bit as loud as I remember it. And I was thinking, I told you we should not have put an explosive in the middle. So I look, man, one of the things I liked blood to some extent in some matches, and some people wore it better than others. Like there are some people, for me at least, where them bleeding does not add a single thing to the match. Whereas I just throwing out a name like Britt Baker looked good, like she wears it well.
Yes.
And I always thought I wore it pretty well. And sometimes that's just a little trickle coming down from the Hardway that was reopened by Terry Funk legit. And I think sometimes, even though I'll be literally almost like cascading pull up by the end of this match. Oh, I didn't go up too light for that one. So I was about 280 here and in some pretty good cardio. Oh man, that's a simple thing. And maybe, it hasn't stood the test of time, but we did tell a little story. We worked the wire to where we showed off, like the ominous nature and how, we were trying to avoid it. But clearly, we're going to end up in that stuff. That's a foregone conclusion.
You wrote in your book, as I got closer, I became braver to the point I thought, I'm going to take this whole side out, talking about the barbed wire.
Yeah, I thought I could.
I've done this twice at Cork and Hall, and it was impressive, but injuries were likely. I didn't really care at this point. I was pretty banged up already. As it turned out, the point was, there it is.
Toss on my part. Terrible Beal toss. But on the other hand, I did land on C4 explosive. That one didn't hurt as much because I was rolling. Okay. So my initial reaction, and I'm going to pay the price as we go on here. A lot of people know this match by heart. They know there's a second landing that doesn't work out nearly as well for me. And again, this is all stuff that's being called. It's nothing monumental, but yet we both firmly believe that the ring is going to implode at the 10-minute mark as it had for the FMW matches. And so that was a rude, we were in for quite a surprise and a rude awakening when we found out, it was, I think I described it as looking like 4 Roman candles going on. And again, this is our third match of the night, of the day. The day was so hot that the opening matches couldn't go to the mat. They had something different than the traditional canvas cover for this big show.
It was like plastic. It was hot.
Yeah,
right?
Like plastic. And I won't say someone fried an egg on it, but I believe you could. And it was, it was hot out there. It was hot out there. And again, I had torn down the sides in a couple of my matches. And going back to January 8th, 95, where I tried the hangman and the ropes. I've since speculated that maybe if you lose an ear doing that match, you should probably take that particular, doing that move, you should take that particular item off the menu and not try to do it in barbed wire. So I nailed the hangman itself, but the wire didn't support my body. Oh, man, Funk had some good distance on that.
What's Mrs. Foley heating up in the microwave?
Mom, what are you making over there? Mom? Oh, what are you making? Oh, you're heating up your sandwich. Okay.
What?
Yeah, you're heating up your Jersey Mike sandwich?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, yeah. My brother made a Jersey Mike's run, and my mom loves those sandwiches. Yep. Yeah. Turkey and cheese. Yeah. So that's what
There you go. A little turkey and cheese action here on Foley's Pod.
Oh, there we go. Similar to what I did to Nakamaki. And I'm just trying to think of stuff to do. Like, we're just trying. Again, I set out at the beginning of the day to tear the house down, but by that point it was like 8 p.m. or maybe 9 p.m. and I'm just trying to get through it. I literally using, trying to survive it. And we're trying to get to that 10-minute mark. I mean, I'm a little bit, I'm scared, man. I'm not afraid to admit I was scared of that ring imploding. I'd seen it before. But well, here comes Terry. Jabs, punch, boom, boom. He was sending those believe me, he's sending those bad boys. And now you wouldn't believe how over the step over toe hold was in Japan. I submitted to Dory Funk Jr. in All Japan, and I submitted to that match, and I submitted to Kurt Angle. But I believe those are the only 2 submission losses. Here comes Tiger Jeet Singh to help me out. Tiger Jeet Singh was a legendary figure in Japan. I think, he defeated Antonio Inoki when nobody did that, including Muhammad Ali. And that really made him. And he was also with the audience.
It's remarkable to take a look at this and realize that we're watching something from 1995. This is over 27 years old.
Oh, there's the second explosion. Yeah.
That's not good for
that was a good one. And now it's sticking in his hair, which is always a good visual. I was big on getting my hair caught up. Because again, a lot of bang for the buck, and 1, 2, so we've had 2 false finishes in this match. And then what I would do, if there's such a thing as a secret, I would grab my hair by the roots and then pull so that the hair was being pulled from the ends and not the roots, if that makes sense. But brother, it was uncomfortable. You'd lose hair, would be caught up in the wire. Later on I would go as Mankind to get a lot of mileage out of.
Let's track it here, Steve. We're about to see the big explosion. Let's track.
Okay, here we go. Look at that. Roman candles. Perry stands up and he goes like, what? You can hear the groaning. Perry, we're both at a loss. What the heck are we going to do?
We've got the audio, Steve.
And now as soon as I roll back in, the first thing Terry says to me is, we better get him back. And this is where the injuries start to pile up. Now, boom.
That's not good.
That's not good. And the reason I rolled over like that, it felt like I'd been shot, I don't want to say I was in shock, and I don't want to compare what I did to someone who suffered a gunshot wound. I'm speculating. To me, that was the first thought I had is, man, it feels like I've been shot. I'm rolling over, and that bump would go on to, create a real, a pretty large second-degree burn. It healed up nicely over time, but man, in the days preceding that match, I was a freaking mess. I wrestled a independent match with Sabu, my arm swathed in, gauze to where I looked like Boris Karloff in the original Universal Mummy movie. And then the gauze came off in the course of the match, and with it, all that, that skin, bam. Again, maybe not the greatest blow, but we're about to see where I nearly lose my good ear. And I've got to suplexing the ladder, just trying to come up with stuff, trying to get the fans back. It is a little bit of panic in both. I don't know. I can't say Terry panicked, but I was thinking, how are we going to get these people back? And now I'm not just trying to survive it. I am trying to salvage it by any means necessary. So the bump you're about to see, this one, I think I drop an elbow first off of here, and it's a good elbow. I mean, it's okay, but it looks great in the magazines because you can literally see the drops of blood, every foot or so. And there was a great pullout WWE had in their magazine. So, it feels like I'm pretty high up there, even though I'm only 4 feet, but it's a good solid elbow. And now when I go back again, this is what me and Paul Heyman would refer to. Sorry about that. As the F Troop bump. F Troop was a great 60s, late 60s, maybe early 70s sitcom based on the cavalry in the Wild West. And there was a bump where the entire like section of the fort would tip over. And so I'm actually looking to sail over the barbed wire onto the floor, but I get a little scared and I tighten up, and instead that happens. And I had some massive stitches in my hand, and I needed 14 or 16 behind the right ear. So I was nearly a man with no ears. Like I needed so much stitching done. Again, not to brag, although I guess I'm kind of proud of it in a weird way, but 42 stitches in 6 different body parts. And that would be seen today as a very lackluster. Did he kick out there? Or is it over?
You're the king of the death match.
Yeah, I mean, that would be seen
and you
by
would say the audience was confused but not disappointed. I wrestled way too long and too hard for my victory to be questioned. I was the king of the death match.
Right. And I thought it was we can go into the false finishes and the looks of disbelief that I think are overused in today's game. But I would say those guys who do the great moves and the false finishes would look at that and go, wait, that's the finish? That's the finish to a tournament? But I felt at that time like it was reasonable and realistic and a good way to end a long day of suffering. I think if we were trying to salvage a bad situation. And I think in the aftermath, it took on like kind of a majestic feel. People were not expecting Terry Funk to lose. And by doing that favor for me, like I said, I think if I went back to Japan, I would be known first and foremost as the king of the death match, a WWE champion, later, one half of the Rock and Sock Connection as well. But that's what I think I'm still known as to this day, the king of the death match.
Of course, this is going to follow every move you do here. You wrote in your book that you tried to shake Terry's hand in accordance with the promoter's wishes, but you're hustled out by the young boys before you really get the chance. And you write that I was handed a huge trophy, which I held high overhead for all of Kawasaki to see. I put the trophy down and haven't seen it since.
Never saw it. Can you imagine what that would bring on the open market, brother?
Be awesome.
Great. I never saw it again. I tried to shake his hand. And I did say in my promo, you're a hell of a man, Terry Funk, a hell of a man. And I'm wearing the Born to Be Wired shirt underneath there. Wish I had all that gear to this day. And all right, put the thing down. I never see it again. Never see it again. Nobody sells the effects of a major match like Terry Funk.
You wrote in your book, while I celebrated, Terry was placed in an ambulance and rushed to the hospital. It was a truly touching scene as the adoring crowd reached out just to touch him and chanted his name. Terry had done me a gigantic favor. Terry had only lost a couple of matches in the last decade in Japan, and a victory over the Funker was a huge milestone. Terry Funk, who had spent his entire career giving, had just given me a hell of a gift. I guess after all these years, maybe he really did see shit in me after all. I walked back to the dugout area that led to the dressing rooms, and before entering, I stepped into one of the alternate rings and delivered a final bang bang. I walked to the concession area where I saw Mr. Asano. He was beaming, and rightfully so. This had been a huge success for his little promotion. I was covered in blood from head to toe and had literally risked my life for his company. I thought he would surely recognize this. Asano-san, I said.
Sakoshi bonus? Yeah.
Big house today. Maybe Sakoshi bonus?
Sakoshi. Oh, you don't pronounce the first vowel sound. That's a little lesson in Japanese for you.
Thank you, sir.
Sakoshi. That's why Asuka is not Asuka. She's Asuka. Yeah, just a little lesson.
Asano smiled his $500 smile and
$500 million smile.
There you go. As he put a 100 yen coin into the soda machine. And he said, here's bonus. I don't know where the $300 I earned that day went, but I do know where my bonus went. I brought it unopened back home where it now occupies a place of honor in my bathroom closet. I don't want to showcase it too much.
Wait, hold on. Can I just interject to say,
Please.
as we're talking with the backlighting, I can see a wild hair, not up my butt like most people's wild hairs, but I'm trying to tend to that wild hair. So, all right, go ahead.
Your pay for this.
Yeah, I said 300 because we were gone for 10 days, so it works out to 300 a day. But if you say we were actually wrestling 7 days, then it does come out to that $422 sum, whatever the case is. I don't think anyone's ever worked harder for their money than I did that night.
Let's track your.
I feel like a king. I felt like shaking Terry Funk's hand. When they do his hurt. Well, so am I, Terry.
There you go. We cut it. And I want to take a break right now and remind everybody that if you're looking for an instrument of destruction, we have got an amazing new sponsor. And nobody knows the pains of using a cheap razor better than Mick Foley.
Yeah.
But we have got a solution for you. You got to meet Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that's made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover. And now they're bringing that precision engineering to your shaving experience. Razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more the wobble, the more the nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. By using aerospace grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. That means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And it gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades, no planned obsolescence. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new age tech. And once you own a Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 a year to replace the blades. Wow. I have to admit, I didn't really understand how this was possible. This blade is amazing. Process how thick this is again. Thinner than a human hair. And man, you want to talk about saving some cash? $5 a year for blades? Sign me up. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/Foley to pick a razor for you, and just use the code Foley and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/Foley and use the promo code Foley. hensonshaving.com/Foley. You're going to be glad you did. But man, what a moment that we just saw. One of your biggest moments and matches of your entire career. You wrote in your book, I answered questions for the Japanese media while they took careful inventory of my injuries. They photographed my ear, my hand, my eye, and my head. Strangely, I hadn't thought much about my arm since the explosion, although it did seem to bother me. When the media left, I was practically alone. I had to think about what had just gone on in the stadium and just what the kids would think when they saw their battered Big Daddy-O stumble in the front door.
Yeah.
After careful reflection, I had the sudden revelation that maybe I too needed some medical attention. When I walked out the door, the screaming fans were gone. The ambulance was history. Only Masa stayed behind.
The bus was gone too. Yeah. So let me put this in perspective, Conrad. I'm the king of the death match.
Mm-hmm.
My trophy's gone.
Yep.
I got a Pocari Sweat, I believe was the soft drink that cost 100 yen from Mr. Asano. And now I am told that I will have to walk to the hospital with Masanori Hori, who's a good friend and a super fan, like to quote just Chris Jericho. I don't care who you are. If you haven't met Masa, you're not. So he was. I called him, and now this hasn't aged well. The Native American reference. I called him my Kimosabi.
Yeah.
He was Kimosabi to my Lone Ranger, and so I had Masa walking me to the hospital, which is like I think less than a half a mile away. But it's just this again. It's that surreal nature that you are the king of the death match. You've, if not cheered, at least been appreciated by the majority of those 30,000 people. You're surrounded by media, and now you're all alone. It's just you and Masa going to the hospital, where I believe I have so many injuries that I don't even ask about my arm, because like I said earlier, I had forgotten about it.
You wrote in your book, I was stitched up in the same room as Terry. He took some stitches in his head, and his triceps area was badly burned. I took seven stitches in my hand, 9 in my eyebrow, 11 in my head, and 14 behind my ear. Once again, I failed to acknowledge the injury to my arm, even though it was now throbbing with pain. When I returned to the section of Tokyo, I phoned home and blatantly lied to Colette by telling her I was fine.
Yeah.
Banged up, hun, but nothing too serious. Then I had a small dinner with Masa, headed to my room to count my t-shirt money and eat ice cream in bed.
Ice cream in bed. Count the money, eat ice cream in bed. It's those little things. Part of the nature of the business, and I remember having this talk with Becky Lynch, is that feeling of, enormous accomplishment and then having no one to share it with. Some guys go out, and celebrate. And I kind of like that post-match solitude, though. I wish I had a loved one, and if I didn't talk about it yet on the show, I know I mentioned it in, I think I mentioned Foley Is Good, that after I had my last match with Hunter, I went back to my room and I cried, because it was all over, because I had no one to share it with. And I do remember talking with Becky about that, the highs and lows. And I think it's a healthy part. I'm not saying, I don't want people to feel bad for me, because I value those times, counting my money and eating ice cream in bed, or, crying in my room after, I honestly believe my career was gone. But it was this surreal thing where I'm the king of the death match. I get the soft drink, I have the trophy that I never see again. I'm getting stitched up. I failed to mention probably the most serious of the injuries, which I won't actually know is serious until the next day. And then, I walk to the hospital, and I'm in a little hotel room by myself at the end of the tour.
And the hits keep on coming. I want to remind everybody, you wrestled here in front of 28,757 fans, with barbed wire, with thumbtacks, with a bed of nails, with ladders, with C4 explosives, and you came home with $300 in your pocket.
Well, actually, I came home with $3,000 for the tour, and I did well on t-shirts that day, and I always did well in Korakuen. So I came home with more than that, but it was a lot to pay. And like I said, until the Juggalos threw me some cash for STRANGLEMANIA, I never saw a dime in royalties. But what it was worth to me, meant far more than the money. Are we going to cover the next day at the airport and on the plane?
We are. We're going to do that right now. You wrote in your book, I arrived at the Tokyo airport the next morning, walked aboard, and I heard my name called. Walked to the boarding desk. Mr. Foley, a woman explains, you've been upgraded. I didn't know what to think. I'd been upgraded without asking. I thought about it while I sat in my wide, comfortable business class seat.
Yeah.
They must have simply felt sorry for me. We took off for JFK, and the woman next to me started to wiggle. Tried not to look at me, and when she did, she was clearly uncomfortable. And I tried to put myself in her shoes, and the situation became a little clearer. I had prominent stitches in my eyebrow and head. My right cheek was deeply swollen purple, and I had my left ear bandaged with gauze. To make matters worse, because of the stitches, I couldn't shower.
Yeah.
And my hair was particularly matted with dry blood. The dry blood was flaking off in small chips onto my shoulder. And to top it all off, my right arm, which I'd finally deduced had been burned by the explosion, was now turning brown.
Mm-hmm.
Poor lady excused herself to go to the restroom, and oddly, after an hour, had not returned. I looked around and saw her in the distance, resting comfortably somewhere in the vicinity of 21C. This woman had paid a great deal of extra money to sit in business, but had made a conscious decision to sit in coach rather than next to me. And I kind of like that.
I did. And I the cool thing is, at no point did I think it came down to race. You know, she wasn't avoiding me because I just want to put that out there for the harmonious nature of mankind and coexisting. She was scared, and I guess deservedly so. Yeah, I never flew first class. That was the only time I ever had a business class ticket in Japan, and I really valued that. But it was true that, I mean, that's a long flight. I think the deal was you flew into Detroit nonstop, and then I had to catch a flight to New York. I don't think, even though they do have nonstops on Northwest, I don't think I had a nonstop JFK where we had moved, because it was a move from Atlanta, because it allowed me to drive to a lot of the ECW shows. It was a lot better. My wife could be in New York City where she was doing some modeling, 1 hour train ride. And so we'd made that move. It was my dad who picked me up at the airport, and I was like shifting around so he wouldn't see that arm. And, you may have had this lined up to read, but I'll just, if it's all right, I'll take it on my own.
Yeah.
When I got home, my wife was like, I look bad, right? I mean, there was a photo, and I'll try to dig it. I won't be able to dig up in time because I'm on the road for, quite a long period of time. But it's a photo taken at the airport. I think it's with Gordy and Funk, and there's just so much gauze and so much tape and injuries. That when I got home, I was a sight to behold. But above and beyond the visual, it was the smell. And my wife was like, "What was it? A smoking flight?" I was like, "No." She was, "Oh, it smells awful." My dad was still there. He picked me up, driven me back to our rented house on the island. And it wasn't until he left, my wife goes, "Seriously, Mick, that's like nauseating. What the heck is that?" And then I rolled up my sleeve and I went, "It's me." And can I point out that I did wrestle 2 days later. It wasn't the next day. It wasn't the day I got home, but I believe I wrestled the next day or the day after that. Wrestled Sabu at an independent show. And I think it was the day before SummerSlam, because I was at the same hotel as some of the WWE guys. That was where I first met Shawn Michaels, hung out with Diesel, our friend Kevin Nash. Scott Hall was there. And the skin had just fallen off my arm. And there's a photo taken, I think, the day after that at an ECW show. It's in the Have a Nice Day book in the color section where I'm doing the bang bang, and I've got the bandages on, and there's a noticeable loss of skin on that right arm.
Looking back, any regrets about this one?
No regrets. Not even a single letter, which is we're the Millers thing. And can I just tie this into a unique situation we have here?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that I was a very limited athlete, right? And I was always trying to make the most out of my limited skills by going that extra yard, whether it was, physically, physical sacrifice, or being imaginative and thinking of ways. So I have in front of me this situation we will probably never have. I'm at my mom's house. This is the 1970 Parsonage Yankees yearbook. I think it was going for 25, not 75 cents.
Wow.
And I'll read you the write-up. Foley Mick.
My gosh.
It says, "Mick is the finest fielder batter combination of everyone age 7 or below the Yanks have. Though Mick is not fast, he comes up with many hits and is a fine catcher." So I was working with physical limitations way back when, even when I was the most talented under 7 player on the varsity Yankees, where we'd actually take on teams from other neighborhoods. And we had organized a wiffle ball across the street from me at Forte Roadside Memorial Stadium, not realizing that memorial meant you were honoring someone no longer with us. And Mr. Forte at the time was alive and well. But sorry about this, the sunlight. I can't control this stuff, but it does give it kind of like, I think it fits in with the surreal nature of this conversation.
It makes you feel holier. Right?
There we go. That's better.
And you were holy that day. I mean, tons of stitches. So you never saw the trophy again. We got lots of questions about that.
Yeah.
You sort of alluded to it earlier. This became perhaps the most bootlegged, traded wrestling tape of our generation. I mean, certainly of all time up to that point, maybe still.
Yeah. I don't know if, there's nothing to compare it to. YouTube hits are much different than actually getting that tape in the mail. And there were, I mean, I don't know what the numbers were, but certainly tens of thousands of people who actually bought the tape, probably a lot more than that. Are you getting a good look at the contents of the closet there?
We are, yeah. It looks fantastic.
Before we proceed, can I just say, and I'm not just, pandering because they're our sponsor, but when I did read about the new blade company, I was really excited because it's really cool. It's cutting edge stuff, and I will guarantee you, maybe not next week because like I said, I'm on the road for quite a while. But I will guarantee you that I will start using that product. I'll keep the goatee, and I'm looking forward to being as smooth as a baby's bottom.
Come on now. Now let's talk about the bootleg tape. It becomes legendary. Like you're hearing people talk about it. It's growing. I mean, I got one in Alabama from RF Video back in the day. I sent my $20 or $25 in or whatever, and a few days later, here it came. And it was unbelievable to see what we were seeing, even in 1997. And that tape would just continue to build this legacy. And then
that was 95.
I got the tape in 97.
Oh, you got the tape in 97. Okay. I see what you're saying.
My point is it continued to sell to the point where one day you could just wander into a mall and see that the Insane Clown Posse had turned this into a DVD and they were calling you Cactus Sack.
Right.
And doing silly commentary over it because it did have Japanese commentary. And these folks
but really, those really funny, silly commentary to the point where I didn't think it mocked the product in a strange way. I thought it added to it. And I'm telling you, when I see a juggalo coming up, someone's either got the tattoo or the chain with the little guy with the hatchet. Sure. As soon as they come up, I go, Cactus Sack, and they go, would you? I never felt ashamed to be Cactus Sack. I was kind of proud of that. And I was in the ICP's first movie, Big Money Hustlers, and enjoyed that as well.
You have to feel a little taken advantage of, though, when you see the popularity of this tape, and like just off the top of our head, if we think this thing sold 10,000 copies, and I think that's probably a low number.
Yeah.
That means there's 200 grand worth of VHS sales minimum, plus the 28,000 people who bought tickets that day. And you on average went home with $425 for that show.
Right. 300 a day, 425. Yeah. So you do it per day was 300, per show, 425.
Do you make any approaches with any of these folks and try to ask for more money? You did tell the story about the Insane Clown Posse trying to make you whole, but any other attempts with any other vendors or retailers?
Man, I don't ever browbeat people on here. But there's a promoter who's wanted to use me, and I, if he made that whole tape thing, made the overture, it might be different. And it's not like a grudge.
It's a principle. I get it.
Yeah, it's a principle. Like I stand to make really good money if I did one of the, for love of wrestling, but I had a problem where I thought I was treated a
Less than?
little, a little less than I like to be treated. And so if I need the money, I'll go do it. But until then, I won't, even though I stand to do really well. And I don't mean to punish the UK fans because of that. But yeah, I did. There's times when you feel slighted and you feel like someone has the opportunity to make it up to you. And you hope they do, but you accept that that's not likely to happen in the real world very often.
And then you somehow, some way run into the Insane Clown Posse. And I believe the story is they paid you cash on site. Is that right?
I said, hey, man, I did ask them about that. And they, threw some money my way and then put me on the, in their movie. So, I've done the Gathering twice. It was one of those things, bucket list thing. And, they always treated me well. And I was so concerned about being showered with debris, like some of the guests had. And one of the guys running, they're not going to do that to you. And so I had picked up, a rain poncho, even though, the weather forecast was for clear skies. And then I picked up a goalie stick at a sporting goods store. And I was like working in the pocket and a lacrosse goalie stick. And the guy goes, hey, you going to play some wax? I said, no. And he goes, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, catch some shit. He said, what kind? I said, human. And then 20 minutes into my set, I said, will someone at least throw a beer can at me so I could write this stick off on my taxes? Because they were really respectful. And so I do like the clowns.
I love this topic, but I do want to ask, and Brad Stanton asked it on Twitter, should death matches still be around?
Yes. My mom said yes. Did you hear her?
I did.
Man, hey, look, these are adults, consenting adults, making decisions. I was at the Moxley Gage match and I, gladly joined in on commentary. And I do, I don't like the light tubes. I understand that it gets a heck of a pop, but on the risk reward ratio analysis, it's really low, a lot of risk. And case in point, I'm so sorry about the sunlight thing here.
No, it's fine.
Okay. Case in point, when I used light tubes, maybe for the first and only time in my Boiler Room Brawl with Undertaker, he got some of those fragments under his skin and it resulted in an awful staph infection. And being the Undertaker, he still made it to the next few. We were in Puerto Rico and I wrote about this in the book. Doctor came in, his elbow was like the size of, I don't want to say a basketball, but probably an orange, large orange, small grapefruit. And they squeezed it and pus just shot like 6 feet across the room, hit the wall. And then he did look like a dead man when he walked out. And eventually, as we talked about in the Bill Watts episode, he filled in a couple nights for the Undertaker in a casket match and managed to beat me without even losing his cowboy hat. But very, very rare for the Undertaker, who, as we speak, is only days away from being paid tribute to with my my Rest in Pieces video.
How fun was that?
It was just ridiculous. I mean, I was visiting relatives, and then this adventure I may or may not be on, traveling the country, put me in a situation where I was only, I was en route to Niagara Falls. And so I stopped off to see a couple of friends, and they had asked me, they said they're going out not trick-or-treating, but going out for, to celebrate Halloween. And they were dressing up as wrestlers and asked me if I would wear an Undertaker, outfit. I said, if you can find one that fits, I'll wear it. And it was just so ridiculous. I saw the Parmesan cheese that night and I went, rest in cheese. And then the next day I was like, rest in pieces. And I went and bought 4 jumbo bags of Reese's Pieces, and the rest, as they say, is history, and we should. I know we do this thing live, but can we next week insert that magical moment? It's a great.
Stay tuned. We'll throw it in at the end of this week.
All right. 15-second video. It even got a comment from The Undertaker, who said in the comment section, "Well played, my friend." And I hope people saw it as a tribute and not as a mockery of that character. Oh, I've got 10% left. We better wrap this bad boy up, Conrad.
Before we get there, I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Betterhelp. And I've been a big fan of Betterhelp. I actually went to therapy personally, and it helped me quite a bit back in 2006. And today's episode, again, sponsored by Betterhelp. I'm a big fan of this because life doesn't usually come with a user manual. So if it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills, which makes therapy the closest thing to a guided tour of the complex engine called you. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere. It's all 100% online. I had a relationship that ended in 06. Wasn't really sure, hey man, how do I process all this? I needed somebody to talk to. I found the help I needed. It's been very helpful for me personally. And if you need to learn some coping skills, you need some self-empowerment, maybe you're dealing with trauma, if you think you could benefit from therapy, I think you should try BetterHelp. It's a great option. Everyone deserves to feel their best. BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. And as the world's largest therapy service, they've matched millions of people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. All the benefits of in-person therapy, plus it's more convenient, more accessible, and more affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. So get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Foley. That's betterhelp.com/Foley. betterhelp.com/Foley. Before we get out of here, Mick, I do want to ask, Joey wants to know, what did you think of the exploding barbed wire match in AEW between Omega and Moxley, despite the famous botch?
Well, hey, look, we had the big botch in our match too. Man, unfortunately, that's what the match is going to be known for. And the guys worked so hard before that. I'm not sure barbed wire is the best way to take advantage of Kenny's, huge gifts. They've had a little trouble with the stipulations. Man, that was the one where Eddie was. What? No. Eddie was. Where did Eddie come down and cover the body? Was that of Moxley?
Yes, that's his best friend right at the very end.
Yeah. They've had a couple. And this is. I hate to overuse Mr. Miyagi, but you either stay on one side of the road or the other, and it seems like if you design it to be in the middle, you get squashed like a grape, even if that's just emotionally. So I don't. Man, I don't condone it, but I do understand that it is, it is. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is some people's cup of tea. And I find that the people who are drawn to it, watching it, are a lot like the horror fans, where you would think on paper. And I've seen actresses, specifically the actress who played Jason Voorhees' mom, went to her first convention, and she was a little bit. I've already used trepidatious once, so I'll just say, a little bit hesitant. And then she realized, how kind-hearted the people are. And it's just been my history that the people who watch it are good people who, like to see consenting adults do weird stuff. And, again, I don't condone it, but I understand it. And I feel like the people who take that step and do it for more than the money are worthy of our admiration, even if it's not your thing.
Well, hopefully this show is your thing. We hope that you'll throw us a like, leave us a 5-star review, and hit that subscribe button if you think we've earned it. We'd love to have your interaction. You can ask questions here on the show at Foley Is Pod. The best way to introduce a new listener to our program
here,
is
this is me. This is me imitating the 2 hours that literally seem to fly by. I can't believe we've been talking for 2 hours.
Yes.
And can I thank all the people who choose to listen
Please.
or watch, because there are a lot of choices. Conrad, we've talked about this before when, you were pursuing me for a while, going back, I would say 4 years,
2018. Yeah. 2018. For sure.
And, I kept coming. Finally, I said, aren't there already too many podcasts? And you made me feel like I had something valuable to offer. And so I know there's a lot of other great shows there. And I think I've said, like, we're all kind of taking on similar tours, trips down memory lane. And it just comes down to who you feel most comfortable with your tour guide. And so I really appreciate everyone who chooses to take the tour with me, and I appreciate our new sponsors.
We hope you guys will see us sooner rather than later. Next week, we'll be talking about Survivor Series 1996. What we're doing coming off of Buried Alive is the reinvention of The Undertaker. We'll briefly talk about Terry Gordy's cup of coffee with the WWF. Of course, Taker's new look, Paul Bearer in a shark cage, Steve Austin having a hell of a performance with Bret Hart, the crowd there in New York turning against Shawn Michaels. It's going to be a lot of fun. All of that coming your way next week, right here on Foley Is Pod.
One last thought for the kids out there. I've alluded to it before. The reason my right eye blinks a lot, I believe, is because of the Hardways. I was warned that they were dangerous, and they are. And I think that's why I have that facial tic. I can't prove it scientifically, but I think so. So don't hardway each other. That moment has come and gone. I used it. I was proud of it, but it's dangerous. And the skills that most of the men and women have are so good that they don't need to go there. And I don't encourage anyone to do it because there's a heavy price to pay for it.
I want to back up and comment on your light tube comment. I agree. I wish light tubes would go away. But I am curious.
Can I just say, one of my main concerns is that it's going to injure somebody in the crowd.
I've seen it happen.
There's so many fragments and dust. And like I said, I saw it get under the skin, and literally get under the skin of the Undertaker. And I don't want to hurt. When I went to All Japan, I was taking bumps in the crowd in 91. I thought that was part of the deal. And then I found out that the fans, they don't mind being punched, but they don't want to be landed on. So, I always tried to respect the safety of the fans. And once I found out that they weren't in on it, they do in Japan like to play extras like in a monster movie and run in fear from you, even though they're not technically afraid of you. But yeah, I'm worried about the fans, and I'm worried about the guys. So Nick Gage nearly lost his life because of a light tube. And again, we're consenting adults, but I would like to see something else replace the light tube as the gimmick of choice in those type of matches.
What about C4?
I'm all for it.
Yeah. No more light tubes. Let's just blow each other up. There you go.
In extreme situations. In extreme situations, I'm not against it. If you can create an image that's going to last for 27 years, I'm not against it. I don't condone it. I wouldn't advise anyone to do it for the amount of money I was doing it for. I was okay with it on that particular day.
And on that note, I'm going to recommend Foley go to betterhelp.com/Foley. Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Check us out on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Foley Is Pod. We'll see you next week right here on Foley Is Pod.
Have a nice day.
Rest in pieces. Delicious.